Just so everybody knows, we are recording this meeting.
Allison, am I taking minutes? Okay, that's what I thought. It kind of dawned on me about 5 minutes ago, but I gotta find my headset.
Hello.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Good.
Oh. Hey, everyone.
Hi, Ryan.
Oh, there we go. All right, welcome. I did hear from Sandy. She said she's going to be a few minutes late, so she'll be here when she can. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So wait. So Frank's coming in, Joel, and Tracy. But we are a few minutes early, so that's good. Try to get my screen share set up just so people can see things, and I like my text really small, so if things are small on my screen, let me know and I'll zoom in. How's everybody hanging in there? Everyone doing okay?
Doing good given the circumstances.
Yeah, I think that's a standard answer, right? If people say I'm doing okay, that means they're probably doing pretty good, all things considered. I don't know. I have to say I'm pretty lucky and fortunate to live in a place with so many trails. You know, there's so many people out on the trails. It's awesome.
It's been really remarkable. And the weather has been so lovely.
Yes, it's making it harder to stay inside more, but yeah,
know.
I know. Until it snows this weekend, but
Right, exactly. I know. I went on a bike ride today and I definitely went for longer than I should have based on the last time I biked, which was over 6 months ago. And about partway through, I thought, should I have my husband pick me up? Is this too, did I try for too long? But it was so amazing out. It was awesome.
oh, good for you.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, no, when I go run, I don't know whether or not I should be having a face mask or not. You know, half the people do and half don't, and it's just a hard thing to know, because usually you can get pretty far away on a trail
Yeah.
around here, but I'm trying it, you know, and when I come near someone, I'll just cover up my face, and then when I get past them, I take it down, because those
Yeah.
things are, it's hard to breathe through when you're breathing hard.
Yeah, I imagine.
Okay, there's Frank. Hey, Frank. There's Joel. Okay, so the only ones I know that we're missing are Tracy and Sandy, Trustee Hammerly, who said she'll be late. So I think it's 5:30 and I think we should just get started. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order. Before we do roll call though, I do want to just say a few things about conducting a meeting this way. This is new for all of us. I know we tested it a little bit, but just a reminder that it will be recorded on the speaker view. So whenever whoever's speaking comes up into view, that's what will be recorded. So just remember, everything you're saying and doing will be public on the town website. Anyone who will enter the meeting for public comment, they'll raise their hand, and then Allison will be the moderator, and she'll be the one to allow them their turn to speak with their comment. By default, we're panelists, and so we can talk, but non-panelists won't be able to. So Allison will be moderating that, and I think it's fairly new for her, so we should have some patience as she's working through how to do all of this for the first time. She also might be delayed in getting answers to us if we have questions, because she'll also be managing people that might be asking questions or coming into the meeting partway through and helping, you know, to manage any sort of those types of issues. One thing that I learned that was good to know, but per the board agreement, that these virtual meetings are considered an in-person meeting, that we can vote and make recommendations in this forum, where before, if you had called into a meeting, you weren't a voting member, but we actually can make a recommendation and vote if we need to. I don't know if there's anything tonight that we'll need to vote on, but that's a good understanding in the rules of engagement. And then the final thing I wanted to mention is that by the nature of how these Zoom meetings get scheduled, there is a hard cutoff. So at 7:30, this Zoom meeting will be shut down. And so we just need to be aware of that as we're working through the agenda, that if we get near the end, that we may either need to delay some things or updates and look ahead. We may need to email out to the group or such things. So with that, we'll do roll call. So we'll just go around and introduce ourselves. Ryan Welch, Chair.
I'll go Kate Senecal, Vice Chair.
Sean
Frank
Samuelson.
Rainer Kunz, member.
Martha Strauss, member.
Joel White, member.
And Sean Samuelson, member.
All right, thank you all. You've all seen the agenda. Would anyone like to recommend any changes to the agenda? I did email out that some sub-bullets on the trail ranking were wrong, but I don't think we need to change the agenda since we will be talking about trail ranking. But is there anything else anyone would like to have changed? Okay, with that, we can move on. Allison, do we have anyone here for public comment?
No, right now it's just a couple members of my team who are hanging out to see how things are going. So no one's raised their hands. And so
Okay.
I've posted something in our chat that shows that members that come in after our public comment period, unless trustee Lasis would like to raise his hand to make a comment, is our latest entrant.
Okay. Well, welcome, Trustee Lasis. Good to have you. Okay, well, we'll get into it. So thank you all. I appreciate you all being willing to meet this way. And I don't know, it feels good to be getting into OSAC business rather than listening to the news or doing other such things right now. So the first thing I wanted to bring up was National Trails Day. We have already discussed this at our meeting, our previous meetings. 7 June is the date. But Allison, is there anything you need from the group to finalize any sort of planning for that?
No, we've received our permit from Boulder County. Everything is scheduled and ready to go as long as the event is able to go. So we're great, except for maybe purchasing a few of the drink and snack items or raffle items, but you may want to wait closer to the date.
Yeah, that we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting to finalize those logistics. Normally, I just go do that, and so that's no problem. But you're right. We'll need to make sure that the event is a go. Do you? I mean, I know these times are uncertain. Do you have any feel for when they might call? No event, or is? I mean, I assume the answer is it's all up in the air. But I figured I would at least ask.
I really don't have any information on that at this time. I'm assuming it'll be closer to the date that is already kind of on the books for the end of April.
Okay. So just stay tuned on what will happen with National Trails Day. Okay, I'm just taking some notes here. All right, well, let's get into trail ranking then. So I will bring up the file. Kate sent it out. One nice thing this time is that we aren't passing around a trail ranking spreadsheet as well as a map. Last time the map got put together, Corey from ProStack put it together. I redid it this time in a way that I know how to edit quickly as we add or remove different trails. So what you'll see when you open up the spreadsheet, and again, it's I'll make the text a little bit bigger, is there's some color coding for Town of Superior trails, what we would designate county trails, and then blue trails, which there's only one, is an existing trail, just to give some reference to some of the other trails that we'll be ranking. Column A is the reference to the map. So for example, number 1 on the map. So if you go to the map worksheet, you will be able to find number 1. The methodology to the numbering was only just trying to group like numbers together. There's no, sometimes we would number them by what the priority was last time. And I found that when dealing with this, I like to logically be able to work, down trails that are near each other when I'm ranking them. So that was how I decided to put the numbers together as you work through the map. And then column B here is a reference into the continuity document. So if you all don't remember this document, I will bring it up. It was too big to email. It's about 20 megabytes. So we'll get a link out to the Dropbox location so you can go through this. But in here, there's a whole bunch of, there's a bunch of table of contents. But so for example, the first item on here, the OSAC continuity document is Trail L. So as you go down through the trails, right, it's all in the title. It may take some time to scroll down, but here is the trail we're talking about. It's got rankings from previous years, any notes that we have from other meetings that give you details. So, you know, if you really want to dig in and look at what's happened with the trail, this is really the best reference you're going to have for going through the ranking. And then I think that this was an important thing that we wanted to talk about, but and make sure the group agrees, because the group may not agree, but we decided that we wanted to rank on desire and not visibility. You know, we know that some trails are expensive to build due to grading issues or bridges that would have to be built. But we think that the lens we should be looking at this on is what do we really want, and not the cost, because who knows what could happen, right? Money could be found, or grants could come up, or other things could happen that could actually make the trail feasible. And if we didn't rank it high because of the dollar value, then pretty much guarantees it won't get built. But by doing it this way, you know, if there's a certain amount of money, the assumption would be that the town would find the first one that would be doable within that amount of money. And so I do want to just pause there to see if people agree with that kind of lens on the ranking priority, or just how to rank each trail. Okay. Well, it sounds like everyone thinks that that's reasonable, so we'll keep it. We don't restrict it, but when you're going to vote, right, you're just going to put it whether it's a high, medium, or low. So basically a 1, 2, or 3. You don't have to numerically rank order everything. That order comes out in the overall process. Try to keep the same number of 1s, 2s, and 3s. It doesn't have to be exact, and there's no hard and fast rules. But if you put everything as a 1, we're probably going to send it back to you and ask you to redo it. We've never had that problem. Everyone's been reasonable, so I don't expect any sort of issues there. You'll see the directions on how to rank. And then for the last column, we basically ask you to say, you know, okay, we've got this list, you've got it high, medium, and low, and then just pick 3 that you think are the most important. And you can mark them however you want. You can rank order them 1, 2, 3. You can put X, X, X if you know, or mark it however you want to in there, and then we'll know that those are annotated as your top 3, and then that all sums up. The only thing that we ask is that you don't put any of the county trails in your top 3, because the county, if you recall, you know, at the end of each year, we send Boulder County our prioritized list of trails. And so that goes to a different set of people to make decisions. And so the primary focus, well, not the primary, but the focus for that column is for town dollars going towards trails. Any questions?
Ryan, I've asked you this before, but is this last year's list, or has something been added, or don't we know? Because I see Shan Shan still called Shan Shan. So.
Yeah, but that's replacing, right, replace trail on rail bed with town trail. So what that means is on the map, what it is not building the Shan Shan trailhead, but it's instead of the Coal Creek Trail running along the old rail bed, it's moving the trail back inside the fence. And again, those better descriptions will be in that continuity doc. But, and Marcy, I know you asked, this list is probably, you know, 50% different than last year.
Okay, so I'll just compare them.
Yeah, because we had trails on there that Boulder County said they're not feasible. And so
Okay.
those were all removed.
That's a good idea. Good.
The other, I'd say, big change to know is that last year we ranked downtown connectivity as one item. In
Mhm.
this ranking, all the trails for connectivity or for downtown are individual trails. So that's also a big change.
Are they grouped together somewhere?
Yeah, they
Okay.
are. Well, I
Okay.
mean, they're grouped together in number, right from the map.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
see like 8 through 13 are the
Okay.
downtown connectivity. That's again why I did the numbering that way, because it made sense to have all the downtown connectivity in similar numbers.
Okay.
So good questions. Thank you. Again, we've agreed upon this list with ProStack, so they will be ranking the exact same list. They've got the same map. So we shouldn't expect any mismatches between the list. And then I think the only thing I would say is I think I'd like to have these back by May 1st. That gives us about 3 weeks to get done with the ranking. If you feel like that's too aggressive, please let me know. The reason I choose May 1st is that gives me a week to summarize the results. And then at the next meeting, we can go through and review where we ended up in the trail ranking.
And I don't think I wrote in the directions, but Ryan's going to collect them. So just send them to him. Sean, I can just forward yours because Sean has already done his.
All right, man,
So
Sean, way to go.
he didn't need the May 1st due date at all.
I mean, for those of us that have done this 3 or 4 times now, it gets to be,
Or 6.
yeah, right. It's more familiar. And again, if you have questions when you're going through it and you're not sure, please reach out. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about, the process or the trail. The only thing I will say is that I am not 100% sure, but I'm mostly sure there won't be budget this year to build any of the trails that we recommend. If you recall that, I think it was Trustee Hammerly that acquired that Dr. Cog money to extend the 36 bikeway into Superior. So it'll come, right where it goes over the bridge to Avista, it'll come in on our side by the Anderson development, go along on 88 through the 88th widening, and then back down through by the dog park and the skate park to connect up with Broomfield. But there wasn't enough money, from what I recall, in that grant to do the full construction. And so money that's available is going towards this trail. But having said that, we want to be ready just in case. So.
And I'll make sure to send out the Dropbox info for the continuity doc because it's the only way. I can't send it through email. I did try, but
I mean, I could try saving it as a PDF and see if it shrinks the size any. I don't know if it will.
I can try it. I can do that too. So I'll shoot to get that to everybody tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, other questions on trail ranking?
So I just want to congratulate you guys for getting that map finally together after 6 years of having to do this. That map is a godsend. You included everything on it. It's great. I was super excited.
Well, what I finally did, Sean, too, is I saved this in a format that's easily editable.
Perfect.
That we don't have to go recreate it. So, unfortunately, I use the editing program I have. So if anyone inherits, they would need to get that same program. But yeah, it's not nearly as fancy as things we've had in the past, but it's nice that it's easily changeable.
No, I'm thrilled. It was great.
Okay, good. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, Frank, shoot.
I think Rainier was speaking. Go ahead, Rainier. I'll go after you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's the blue line, the existing track A8?
So the only, I put that in there just because this is that new trail that is on the south side of the downtown development right now between the gated community and downtown. And there's a trail that goes down there, but it's somewhat a trail to nowhere because the construction isn't finished. I only put it in here because it didn't show up on the satellite. And I wanted that for reference to where these other trails would connect in to that existing trail.
So that's the existing trail when you go down, and it ends at the construction site then.
Yep,
Basically.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yep.
My question was going to be the process once we turn these in by May 1. What happens next?
Sure. So we will discuss it and just see where the rankings come out and see if make sure that everybody kind of feels comfortable with it. And maybe someone had flipped their rankings and said, oh gosh, I didn't quite understand, and so we may have to iterate. That rarely happens. But then ProStack will also rank, and then we combine rankings. Sometimes there's some negotiation with ProStack where if something like two trails may come out with the exact same ranking, and so we may want to say, do you care which one is higher? And then once the leadership team agrees, then we make a recommendation to the board that this is our completed trail ranking list for 2020. And then it's there ready for them that if money should come available, that we can, then potentially construction would happen on one of these trails.
Okay, thank you.
So that's how it will work. Good question, thank you. Others? Comments, concerns?
So just a reflection, listening to Sean talk about doing this 6 times, so he knows where everybody's sort of favorites probably are, whereas I and Rainier have no idea. So I hope my rankings aren't too far afield from everybody else's, but if they are, I'm looking forward to the discussion next month. I'll learn.
I find the discussion really interesting because you learn, we don't want to do this discussion ahead of time because we don't
Sure.
want to skew people's perspectives.
Sure.
But it is interesting to hear people say why they ranked the things where they did. And for me, I think this will be maybe my 4th time.
Mhm.
That lens of fees, not including feasibility, will probably change how I rank things. And
Mhm.
so it will be a little different for me this time. So I think I always look forward to that discussion. So I agree. Okay.
I like the language in there where it says value. I think it says value to the town.
Yes.
That value proposition, how everyone interprets that, will also be interesting to me.
And that's a hard one, right? Because everyone has different things they value. But anything I've learned is that the rank order usually feels right to everyone when we're done.
Sounds good.
I think is a fair statement. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is normally how we've seen it come out. So, okay.
When do you want these?
By May 1st, please. Okay, let me get back to the agenda. Boy, we are way ahead of schedule. This is awesome. Okay, one of our work plan items was to discuss finances. And what we did last time was we talked about the open fund balance and some issues around it. And there's a ton of details here. And so I don't know how much detail I want to go through this, but the first thing I wanted to talk about was that last time when we did this, we started talking about this bond balance, and I was pretty confused last time when we were talking about this and what this all meant. And as I was digging through the various town financials and the budgets, I think I have a clear picture. So I thought it would be good to just walk everyone through that. Normally I would say why this is important is that if a property were to come available, it's good to know how much money we have sitting in the open space fund when if we were to make a recommendation, right? We already have a recommendation out there for a pretty big property that I'm mostly sure well exceeds our fund balance, which means that other financing will have to be figured out. So if that all happens, this conversation will change pretty dramatically. But I think it'll be good to have the same conversation again if that does happen, to see what would then happen to the fund balance in terms of you know, is it completely wiped out for a certain number of years, or are any loans that getting paid back actually, you know, the revenue might exceed the loan amount that year, and so the fund balance may actually start building up right away. It'll just be interesting to see. But the first thing was that after the open space committee, or the 3% sales tax was approved, the residents approved in 2005 that the town debt could be increased by 12 million to basically issue bonds to be able to buy more open space. In 2006, 6.675 million was issued. And from what I understand, there was a fair number of properties that were purchased about that time in 2006 with this money. And the interesting thing I learned is that about 800K of that is left for, you know, additional funds for purchasing open space. But then the other interesting part was that in April 2015, the town essentially restructured the debt on those bonds. And by taking out a loan, the payments went from, I think, about 500K down to about 350. And so by doing that restructuring, there was more money that was staying in the open space fund. And so then what you see here is this is the remaining debt that is being paid off from that debt, from those bonds, and now what would be a loan. So I know it's a little confusing, but to me, the interesting part was 12 million was approved and 6.675 has already been used. So there's 5 million and change left that the voters have approved for bonding. And that 800K of that 6 million is available.
So is that 800K, Ben, sort of, does the town have that as its money, or is it still a bond? In other words, we're not paying interest on that 800K, are we?
I have no idea. I'm not sure how that works. I think, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm not, I understand my company's corporate finances, but in terms of town finances, you know, I was able to just pull this together. And one thing I do want to mention is that this is my understanding of it. This is not coming from anybody, a finance person from the town. Our plan is to review this with them and make sure that this is accurate. But as of right now, this information I wouldn't say is blessed by any means by the town. So it's useful for our conversation, but don't share this. Don't say that these numbers are absolutely the right answers, because as you know, if you've ever done financial work, you know, it's easy to miss something or make an assumption that's wrong and get quite a wrong answer. So I'm pretty comfortable on this one. But so anyway, just that one's more interesting. This one.
I have a question on the previous one still.
Yeah, sure.
On the remaining 5 million plus, which was approved, is there a time limit when those bonds have to be issued?
That I don't know. In anything I read, I didn't see that there was a time issue, but I'm not sure how that works. So I'll try to get an understanding of that if and when we get a chance to talk to someone in the, you know, the town that is an expert on this.
Okay.
So
I just want to thank you, Ryan, for doing that. That's always been really confusing to me as well, so I appreciate you putting that together.
Oh, you're welcome. Hi, Tracy. Good to see you. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it took a while digging through the documents, but it was, each document had a little clue. And then once I finally got it pulled together, it was like, and then talking to Allison, I was like, oh, now this totally makes sense. So it was good. So thank you.
Great. And I have heard Matt talk about that money still being available to us in the bonds. I've not heard him talk about a time limit, but you know, it's a good question to ask.
Okay. I agree.
Is there any news whether we're going to need this money real soon?
I don't know if we, I don't know of anything, but
I don't know of anything
I mean,
either.
well, that is in the updates and look aheads we'll talk about.
Okay.
But I mean, I hope so. The hope is there would be, but I just, you know, wherever that's at, I've actually asked to be kind of kept out of the loop because I don't want to know something and accidentally say something I shouldn't. So anyway, that's where we're at with the bonding. Now this file is complicated, and I mean, it is complicated until you really dig in, but these, if you go into the town's website and you go to the financials, they have these budget files that are all public. And when you go into them, you'll find that there is a section for revenue and expenses as it relates to the open space fund. And essentially, that's what I have summarized here about basically as far back as I could go. And then 2019 actuals haven't been posted yet. So, or at least in terms of when the 2020 budget was done, 2019 wasn't finalized. So I didn't have 2019 finished to fill in this column. So these are budget numbers. I did find some actuals here for 2019, but I don't know if those are finalized, and it's never in the same format, so sometimes it's hard to piece it together. I think the other thing I wanted to mention, I guess one interesting thing I take away from this is just how much the tax is generating per year. You know, so in 2018, it was about 650K. Interest was good that year, so 700K from the fund got added for open space purchases. You know, 2019 budget, that probably happened. You know, with everything going on this year, this number will be probably very different in terms of sales tax, even though my guess is Costco is slammed, and that's a big source of our sales tax for our town. So who knows? The other interesting ones are the loan repayment. So in 2016, the Open Space Fund loaned $2 million to the town to this, what they call the capital improvement, was it program, CIP? I don't remember what the P is, but this was to fund Wildflower Park. And so that's being paid back, and the last payment will come back this year to the fund. So essentially what we get to is this line where there's an available fund balance. Now, I wasn't able to verify this number in the finances. This is all taking calculations of the revenue coming in and the amount of expenses below and just calculating the deltas. So I don't know. I hope it's accurate, but like I said, it's possible that I missed something. You know, for example, the $2 million loan to Wildflower Park wasn't in the file when I was digging it out, but I know it happened because it's getting paid back. So sometimes, you know, there's some weird things that happen in digging out the data, and this is why I want to verify all of this with someone in the town. But having said that, you know, assuming everything went to budget, we would have about $6.5 million in the fund at the end of the year if everything kind of worked out. I guess the only thing I'll say there is that I know that the Coal Creek enhancements for 2019, those were budgeted at 200K, and I think they came in more like at 700K. I hope I have that right, Allison. You know, it's a lot of that was out of the town's control due to how the river had to be rebuilt per the I forget who sets those guidelines, but that was an area where it was way over budget. So I don't know what else is interesting to look in here. I mean, I guess a couple things I pulled out was seeing, you know, the HHR dam rebuild in 2014. The land acquisition in 2014. I think that might have been, would that have been Shanshan potentially? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Yes, I believe it is. Yep.
Okay. And then the other big one here is, you know, Tract H, when the town was able to acquire Tract H from the downtown developer. The interesting thing there to note is that that money comes back to the Open Space Fund in 2020. So, you know, we fronted the money, but the developer's going to pay us back. those were the big things I picked out. Did people have any questions on this, or I don't know. I mean, I think the goal for this will be that we have a similar document to this on the open space website right now. And what I think the outcome from this will be is that when it is, when I can get these numbers verified, that we would create that same document and then update what we have on our website.
I have a question on the revenue.
Yeah, sure.
So when you look from 2015, let's say the open space sales and use tax from 2015 to this year or next year, it almost doubled. Does that mean that the town simply has, or the stores in the town sold twice as much in those 4 years difference?
I think it has to. I don't know what else it would come from. I mean, there is a use tax part of this. So there's, you know, it's not just sales tax. It's like a vehicle use tax, and there's another use tax. And I'm not an expert, and I don't quite understand what those are. The files that I found didn't break those out, but the file that we have out on our website did break those down. I don't have it handy, but I doubt that.
Hey Ryan, Mark just commented in the chat.
Oh,
Said
okay.
We started collecting sales tax from the internet sales. I assume he means at that time.
Oh, okay. That's a actually really good note. So yeah, wasn't it about that time when the laws changed that when you bought things online from a certain jurisdiction that you had to pay tax
Okay. Yeah.
within or from where the purchaser was rather than where the entity was? Actually, I'm going to add a note because that's actually, it's a good observation, and I was wondering the same thing. So let me add a note.
While you're doing that, Ryan, I just wanted to thank you for doing this, and thanks for plugging in the loan repayment and just making it also very clear. It's really nice information to have in front of us.
You're welcome. Yeah, it took some work. It's not always the easiest to go through those files, but anything right now, we have time. So I was able to dig in, but yeah, you're welcome. So we all have these. Like I said, once we get it finalized, we'll get it out to everyone in the group. I guess we'll email it out, put it in our Dropbox, and then, you know, does anyone see any reason not to put this on the open space page of the town website? I mean,
well, are those numbers kind of audited, or?
Well, that's what I want to make sure, is that the town is comfortable with this presentation of the data before we did that. I mean, that's not quite the same definition of audited through, you know, an EY audit through the town. But I think if the town's comfortable with it, you know, if someone found this document and presented it to the town, I wouldn't want them to say, well, wow, where is this coming from? Or no, they made some really bad assumptions on these numbers. And so that's why I'm a little hesitant to do it as is. But yeah, I think you're Rainer, you're hitting at exactly what I'm concerned about, right? That someone else that knows these numbers better than I do says, yes, this looks correct.
I think you need to legally have someone bless it before you post it.
Well, we posted it last year.
We did? We posted this one? Okay.
If you go to the open space
I stand corrected
website and you'll see there's open space financials.
Okay.
I mean, I guess if we didn't have it checked, you know, we need to have some big disclaimer on there. But my guess is not that many people find those documents buried in the open space page, you know. But I agree, right? We want to make sure this is correct. I'm not comfortable with having something I did, you know, on nights and weekends when, you know, maybe a little tired or whatnot, to not, you know, this stuff's important enough. It needs another set of eyes to bless. So I'm working on that, you know, as we get this wrapped up.
And most of this information can be found in the budget or over several budgets, correct?
Yeah. Yep. No, and that's where I got it from, right? The only thing, you know, and I'll work with Allison, was just these numbers for the fund balances, I just did math. I wasn't able to verify in the budget or anywhere in the budgets that those were the beginning and ending fund balances. So if I'm able to find them, I will reference it. The good news is I also documented exactly where I got it this time. I didn't do that last time, and I had to relearn it all this time. So we're much better prepared to update this again next year. Okay, other questions, concerns, issues?
I also wanted to just thank you for putting this together. It's kind of interesting. So if I understand this right, that $6.7 million is the amount of money the town has basically in an operating fund to support outdoor space activities, including the purchase of land?
Yes, and that would be at the end of the year.
Okay.
I don't know, I don't know when, this is a pretty big number, right? This $1.1 million that the downtown developer is going to be refunding back for tract A and H. That's
Right.
cell I6. Sorry, waving off my kids here. I don't know how that works. That's where it is budgeted, but if things, who knows if they get into financial hard times and don't have the money to repay the fund, does that really happen, right? So again, that's the budget, and it may not happen. So, but again, I don't know the details on that. So,
okay. And then there's, you mentioned in the previous discussion, an 800K. Is that captured here? Is this a different thing?
I'm sorry, is it what?
You mentioned the 800K
Yeah.
in a previous discussion that hadn't been spent from the loan. I assume that's captured in this six.
No, that's not actually. That's a good, and maybe that's a good suggestion would be to add that as another line item here. Actually, let me take that note because, do you all agree? Do you think that's worthwhile to have? Because it gives us a better picture of not fund balance, but money that could be spent.
And you're sure it's not in there because it's so many years ago when those bonds were issued, 2006?
I'm not sure, and I'd want to make sure.
I would argue it's probably best to be, if you're going to put this out publicly and you're not sure, I would be conservative.
Yeah. Well, let's find out.
Yeah. So the other question I guess I had, I think I'm wrapping my head around this. So in terms of buying power, then the town has approximately the 6.7 million plus maybe 800K plus the potential to take out 5 and change more.
Yes.
Okay, so that gets you up to almost $12 million.
Yes, that's roughly how I'm reading it. Also,
that's fantastic.
Not roughly, but that is how I'm reading it. I just hope that there's no errors in it because, yeah, that's pretty significant amount.
Yeah, I've never done this for another town, so I have no idea how it compares, but it seems like a really big number for a town that's 4 square miles. So nicely done.
Yeah.
So the other question I had is on the 2020 budget line under expenses, I only see things in the top 3 lines. So there's like no trail improvement. I assume, for example, trail improvements was an annual thing, but it's not captured here that way. Does this reflect the budget for 2020 or maybe you fill in the rest as the year goes on and find out what actually gets spent? Or how does that work?
Well, it's what's in the budget.
Okay.
So when we submitted to the budget, right, there really weren't other open space items. Now, one thing that brings up a good question though, because there is some budget in 2020 for that 36 bikeway. I think it's more of a feasibility study for 2020, and then I think maybe the rest of it comes in 2021. But from what I could pull from that budget, it doesn't look like that money was coming out of the open space fund.
Okay.
And if you all recall, we about 16, like it was December of last year when we agreed as a group that we would prefer that this open space money be used for open space purchases and not trails and creek work and other things. And it's also, that was a big part of when our Shan recommendation went in. We said we'd like these amenities, but we want it to come out of general fund or other funding sources rather than the open space fund. And we felt strongly that these dollars should be going towards purchases and not other things.
I think that was November, but you're right. 2018 November was when we
Yeah.
made that recommendation.
Yeah.
So that
And
means
so-
those trail improvements we just talked about a few minutes ago, they would come from a total different budget.
If something got approved, yes. The other history here, Rainer, that you'll notice is that, see how in 2016 there was about 140K spent on trail improvements?
Mhm.
And so what happened there, and actually when we did the trail rankings, there was something that they were calling a 5-year trails plan or an expedited trails plan, because the trustees at the time had decided that they did want to continue to build trails and use some of the fund, the open space fund, to do that. But then when that $2 million loan went to Wildflower Park, the feeling then from the group, and please anybody correct me if I have this, my recollection of this wrong, they said they wanted to wait till all of that was paid back before they did any more of those expedited trails or any trail improvements out of this fund. And then hence, since then, we've come back to the board and said, well, we really prefer that this money be spent on open space and not trails. Now, again, that's our recommendation to the board. The board has the ultimate, say on how these funds are spent. We solely are recommending a body to the board. But I don't know. My feeling is that they've heard us on that, and so I think that's good. And then the creek, I mean, the creek was just something that, that I don't remember exactly how that came out of open space, but it was, a creek was very much an open space thing, and the powers that be at the time decided that's how it should get funded. Okay. A lot of numbers. Interesting, I'd say. But anyway, if other questions come up, please let me know, but I will continue to work to get this wrapped up. So thank you all for the questions. I appreciate it. Anything else on this? Okay, we are making great time tonight, so thank you all. The Raptor program goals. So this was coming from conversation that Frank has been having with Peter about some of the boundaries for the Raptor program. And Frank, you had some talking points. Would you like me to bring those, open those up, or do you want to just talk through them?
I think it would be best if you could put them on your screen so folks can see them.
Okay.
And my apologies for not thinking of doing this a few days earlier. I'm still catching up to the pace of the group and thinking through the best approach. So anyway, I did have a discussion with Peter and over the last couple of months, and a few questions have come up that we thought it might be wise to raise with the board and get some, get some feedback and advice. One of the questions that came up was, what should the goals and deliverables for the program consist of? And what I provided below there is a list of things that have been done in the past and some ideas for consideration. A second question that came up was the level of autonomy the program should have, especially with respect to seeking volunteers. And then the third one was just more general, sort of where do we go from here? And there was a suggestion from another committee member on a box down in Lower Ormond Roche that we could talk about. So going back to the top, the goals and deliverables questions, as you guys can see on the page there, in the 2019 report, there were 6 goals that were called out for the program. And I think the question here is whether or not we're comfortable with those goals, whether they should remain the goals of the program. And then there was a 7th goal that was proposed that I don't think was included as directly as a part of 2019, but the program itself, the Raptor program folks think it's a really good idea. So quickly, number 1 was determining what raptor species are present. 2 was learning what areas raptors use at different times of the year. 3 was monitoring nesting activity. 4 was trying to prevent unnecessary disturbance to raptors. 5 was identifying particular habitats to protect. And then 6 was providing relevant education to the town's residents. Does anyone have any issue or suggestions on those 6 goals for the Raptor program?
Frank, do you feel like these 6 were pretty much covered in the end of the year report that we got? because I thought the report was really good, but it's been a while since I read it. But you know, a big deliverable for me is just that end of the year report, and then
Yeah.
having the reports year over year so we can see how things are changing. Seems to be
And that's
super
what I've
important.
covered here in letter B. And so I'm with you on that. And so did folks have a chance to look at that report, and do we find it useful, and do we want Peter and his group to continue developing that each year?
I'm fine with all the first 5. I question the number 6, providing relevant education to town's residents, because I don't recall what was written in there regarding that piece. And I don't know if it's put in there as a goal. Do we need to set some sort of expectation of what that actually looks like and how that education is provided? That's all.
No, that's a really good question. It actually lines up with the deliverable piece too. For example, Peter gave a talk at the fire station on raptors
Right.
that I went to, and it was really informative, and he clearly knew what he was talking about. He was supposed to go for an hour, and at an hour and a half, I had to leave with my 7-year-old, and he was still getting questions from people there. There was great interest. The one thing I know that Peter is very sensitive to as well, though, is there is an existing educational program within the town that Ashley runs, and he certainly wouldn't want to step in front of or, muddy the water with that at all. But he is interested in educating people on birds. And so I think the report itself, while not directly an educational tool, if anyone were to review it, they would learn a lot about raptors and where they are and how they operate in our town and the surrounding area. So I see that report itself as an educational tool, in addition to anything else Peter might do. For example, the talk at the fire station, et cetera.
Do you have a sense of if Peter or other volunteers that he's spoken to have an interest in continuing that sort of work, but having it be something that the town publicizes as a volunteer program?
I would want to talk more with Peter on that
Okay.
to make sure. I certainly don't want to step in front of him. But my sense is that he very much enjoys talking about the birds. They're his passion. And so I think he likes to look for opportunities to educate folks and get more people interested in it. That'd be my guess. But I'm certainly happy to go back to him and find out. For example, if you look under letter B, the report is captured there on number 1, but number 2, Peter had raised the idea of raptor walks or perhaps educational presentations. Does anybody on the committee have any issue or heartburn with Peter exploring those kinds of opportunities? Certainly in coordination with ongoing activity.
Well, they did this last year. I mean, I think it was Kathy that did the tour for us. It wasn't official town, it was just for OSAC. And it was pretty great.
Sorry, I missed that.
I mean, I guess the only question I have is, Allison, are there boundaries here? Like when would, for anything that Peter would be doing, where would he be stepping over some sort of boundary that would be getting him in trouble? I mean, I guess representing that it was a town sponsored event would be one, which he wouldn't do that. But I guess those are the pitfalls that I think we should be communicating to him.
Well, don't we direct Ashley what program she has? I didn't think she was independent.
She gets paid by us, though.
No, I understand that, but we tell her what programs to do.
That's correct. Typically at the end of the year, we'll go over the programs that were coming from the Open Space Fund. And then if there are any new topics, we'll talk about those, like the elk last year. So we decided to go ahead and have the elk and deer programming. The bird, she does do bird hikes, and bat and owl hikes are a couple of the programs that have continued this year. As far as this group, which I think Kate mentioned was kind of through another group, and we did not publicize it through the town. So the one that you went to, Marcy, was
it was more private. But can't we make Peter another Ashley, since we have Ashley and we've created Ashley? I guess that's what I don't understand is,
well, Ashley is a wildlife ecologist, so she does a couple of things for the town. number one, she does the programming that we talk about at the end of the year. And the second item that she does is if any resident is having an issue with wildlife,
Right.
or, in their yards or with dogs
Right.
or their pets, then she reaches out to them. So she, I don't know if Peter has, how we could figure that out. But I
know
mean, it
this-
is a possibility.
I mean, we would thereby we would give him some kind of a function and a stature and some kind of a legal status. I mean, I've talked to Ashley about issues we have in my neighborhood, and she's very good and valuable, but we all know that Peter's very good with raptors, and he and Kathy certainly come and talk to us all the time. I'm just wondering if we can somehow legalize his position into something more than.
Yeah, Allison, is there an issue around someone being educated and trained? I mean, I don't know if Peter's, got certification in this, or if it's just a hobby, and he's very passionate about it just as an interest.
Does
that seems
anybody recall the name of the group that Kathy is affiliated with, that Peter kind of got into this? Maybe there's a way to do it through that organization and do it that way.
Yeah,
That's a good idea, actually.
Did they actually? I mean, I know there's
I
the Boulder
can look that up.
Audubon Society.
I don't think it's
I don't know.
that, but I can look in my email quickly and see, because I've had emails with
I
Kathy.
thought it was like a
Yeah, that's what
Boulder
I'm looking for, my
County,
emails.
Boulder County something.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea.
So
mean,
Boulder
another-
County has a whole volunteer program that does their raptor monitoring. It's not just the staff that they rely on for that. They take all the input from their volunteers. And if my memory serves me, Peter was a volunteer for that for a very long time.
So I'm not hearing any hard lines though between, I mean, that was the question, between what Peter's asking if he can or can't do. And for example, like in seeking volunteers, he's certainly interested, I think, in having the town reach out, but he wanted to explore other avenues. He's found that the volunteer turnover is rapid, and folks stick around for 1 year, maybe two. And so he wants to start thinking about the crop, well in advance. So is that kind of thing allowable? Like, could he post something on Facebook looking for volunteers for the program, or?
Well, the
something like
town has actually helped him with volunteers as far as in our Parks, Rec, and Open Space newsletter.
Yeah.
Given some information for that. And as long as it's adults, I don't see any problem with that.
Okay, yeah. So he can, so in addition to doing what you guys have done, he could reach out independently and seek volunteers for the program, is what I heard. But obviously within the constraints of it being adults and all that other good stuff. Okay.
I mean, another option for him, the town has all those communication, social media avenues, right? There's the CAC list. I think there's a Reddit group right there. That might be a good resource for him to see all these different ways that the town reaches out to people. And some of those are.
It's on the postcard that's in my basement, if he
Yeah.
needs it. We have a lot of them.
Actually, if you could take a picture of the postcard and shoot me an email, that'd be great. I can share it with Peter. Yeah, he mentioned the CAC list, and he also mentioned the Facebook group. So it sounds like you guys would be good with that. I think Peter would like that outcome.
I mean, I did one thing, Frank, I was thinking about, is this number 7?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of number 4. I mean, but it's more, it's stronger language. And I think that we found that input that they had was really valuable when we were building the Ormond Roche Trailhead.
Mm-hmm.
That there were certain times a year when raptors are nesting and that we shouldn't be building. And so I don't know. I mean, I think it's valuable that if we have any input on when something is going to be done, if we could avoid disturbances. I don't know that we always have that kind of input or that kind of influence, but
I think
I don't know.
My read of this one was, at least initially, sort of an informal connection. I think Peter and others are sensitive to the town's limited resources, especially when it comes to staffing. But on the flip side, staff that are working outside may see things that volunteers may miss. And so there'd be a good opportunity to exchange information, I think was where he was heading with this one. In both directions, right? From the Raptor program, perhaps to the town, but from the town to the Raptor program as well.
I don't know, Allison, do you have any thoughts there? I just don't know how it would work. I mean, I like having Peter come through us to go through, through to town staff, because I think that's the proper communication channel. Actually, the proper communication channel is from us to the board down to staff, but it doesn't quite make sense in this case.
Well, I can speak for as of right now. Right now, most of our marketing that's going out to residents is not really about programming or events. It's about the current circumstances that are going on right now. So not a lot of more, for lack of a better word, fluffy stuff is going out. So until that changes, I don't know, how our newsletters, which have been impacted right now, because if people are just inundated with email after email from the town, then they unsubscribe, especially if it's about stuff that can't really be done right now. So I can definitely speak for right now that, I don't know when our next newsletter is going to go out.
But I'm reading this slightly differently, though, that it would be, someone on the maintenance crew was out and saw some hawks in somewhere that they hadn't seen them before, and to let Peter know that they saw something, or vice versa, that Peter said, hey, that we've got a new nest in this area, should people be on the lookout, right? All that's really vague, and I don't really know what that would do, but I think that's more of what that's asking. Is that how you're reading that, Frank?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what maybe Public Works or Parks crews would do as far as, watching for birds or raptors. That hasn't been something that's been brought up before. And typically they're really concerned with safety and, kind of ground level looking at what they're doing. I could talk to Leslie about it, or, see what the possibility of that is, but I would assume it may be a little bit low on their project work items.
Frank,
is Leslie the woman that runs the park program that was hired in the last year? Is that? Yeah.
Our director. Mm-hmm.
Our director, yeah. Okay.
Frank,
I think that would be a terrific outcome to raise it with her as a potential avenue. I think this is one that we could kind of hold on to a little bit. To me, this
I
is
think
really
so.
about relationships. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, what I was going to say is what might be interesting is to hold on to this one with you and Peter, and let's have a real situation where we think communication should happen. And then we could talk about it and say, look, this came up. Do we think that there need to be different communication paths when something like this happens? Or do we think we're good? I mean, I think it's just so vague that it's hard to really say, let's do something concrete, but with a good example. But I think that the timing of the Shan Trailhead building is a great example.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, because we knew the project was going to happen. We talked about timeline. We talked about the nest that was in that area. Even with the bird boxes, we were really cognizant that, we were looking to put in one of these webcam boxes that had electricity accessible to it, one of which was at the wastewater treatment plant. We found out that the next 10 years is going to be a lot of movement, construction, and trucks in and out of there. So it wasn't going to be the optimal place. So we didn't spend the money, in our budget to put that there. So I think it is kind of coming along as it's being brought up for different projects. And I think that's great.
Okay. So Frank, do you feel like you have good direction on the first one, on what the goal should be?
The first one I'm good. I think the second one I'm good.
Here's something else to consider. You know, when we're looking for things to talk about at our community outreach events, you know, we had, I think, didn't we have a Raptor poster last time? Was there one floating around that, you know, if the group wanted to help provide a poster or something like that, that they think would be relevant for us to talk about? I mean, that's simple, right? Because it doesn't involve staff. They're building it, giving it to us, and we're having it there as another piece of information to talk about. And then we can be talking also that, you know, that's also volunteer recruiting. Hey, if you're into this and you really like this, we've got this volunteer group that's working on this, and we can get you connected up with the people. And then
Great
Peter
idea.
doesn't have to hang out at, you know, Peter doesn't want to hang out at these booths, right? We need to be there. So
Another idea could be for Peter to host some Raptor training for staff, and just so people are aware of it if they don't, you know, if they don't know about it or they haven't really been trained in anything or what to watch out for. I mean, there's all those dynamics that would have to be learned.
Good. These are great
And
ideas. Thank you.
yes, we had a Raptor poster at one point in time that Peter or Kathy helped create, something like that, with great photos that they all took.
I think it's in my basement. I do, and I'm pretty sure it's there.
So the last thing, at least if everyone's good with the first
Yeah.
two topics, the third topic was more practical. Just trying to understand. I'm still coming up to speed with where the program is and the moving parts and with the boxes and the cameras and whatnot. But one of the it was suggested that a box could go into the lower section of Ormond Roche. And Peter recommended it through the lens of kestrels and also potentially barn owls. My understanding is there might be power there, or at least a relic access to power. And so anyway, I don't know if this is the right time to raise that kind of question or not. But if it is, what would the group think? And I'll let you decide all that, Ryan. Not sure what the right approach here is.
I mean, I think that if we wanted to suggest this, I mean, town staff would actually have to take a close look at it, right? I mean, I know town staff has looked at a lot of different locations, and that they put, you know, last year when we talked about this, I think we talked about it at the end of the year, we thought that this was going to be a couple hours of work. And I think we're many more orders of magnitude over those couple hours of work that we've kind of asked for the town staff to do without making a recommendation to the board. So we've kind of inadvertently directed town staff without having approval to do so. And so I just want to be aware of the amount of time that staff is putting into this topic. But I can, I guess, defer that to Allison. I mean, my guess is we kind of put it on hold because we had exhausted locations. I think there was one more that they were looking, and we talked about maybe putting up a box without the cam and without the power as the next step. But again, with all the COVID response right now, I think that this has taken more of a back seat.
Well, aren't we too late for nesting this year? From the email Peter sent around, it sounded like the birds are nesting right now.
For most, I think that's the case. I think one of the birds nest still in April, but yeah, this wouldn't be necessarily to try and hit this nesting season. I think this is more of a look ahead for next year.
And I think our next location was potentially behind Town Hall at Grasso Park was the next location we were going to look at. And we did send some emails back and forth that, you know, I have 2 of the boxes that we're going to have the webcams that he's already constructed. And, you know, I let them know that I could leave them in a spot as long as they weren't attaching to a structure, like one of the historical structures or something like that in the park, that if it was going to be on one of the trees in the creekway, like the other owl boxes had been put in, that we could, you know, make sure, so we wouldn't have contact with another person with a person, that we could leave it in that area for the bird expert to put up. He did put the other boxes in that area, but I think there was some question as to if he could put that one up or not. I'm not sure.
I didn't quite understand the ping pong match over the emails. So I'll leave that to you to yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't sure I quite follow. Feels like to me there's a missing piece here that I don't fully appreciate on whoever built the boxes and their willingness to follow through. So maybe that's a topic for a different day, I guess. I don't know.
Is it my understanding, Frank, that none of the boxes with the cameras have a nest?
No boxes with cameras have been installed.
Yeah.
So we never got the cameras in, guys. Okay.
Yeah, the issue has been access to power and Wi-Fi. And
Okay.
then,
Well, there's also a
on top of that, there's the-
sensitivity to it wanting to be somewhere where kids aren't going to go up and mess with it, right? Where it's somewhat protected by.
And where there's no projects that are going to disturb the raptors too. So there's been
Right.
like a bunch of different reasons for different places.
So this year it ain't gonna happen.
Well, I think right now with everything that's going on,
Yeah.
I think it's harder, but in the fall, you know, I think we should maybe, I think we might want to shelve this have this location, but when things return to more normal like, I don't even know if the guy that builds the boxes is even out traveling and doing any sort of work right now. But to come back around to this in the fall, because even if we did it in the fall, we'd still have enough time for the nesting that comes around, you know, at the beginning of the year or in the spring.
That strikes me as the right plan, and that would give us more time on the front end to plan it appropriately.
Wasn't he going to come and tag any chicks in the boxes this year that hatch?
I think so. I thought that was the plan.
Who's the he?
It's the guy that builds the boxes. I forget his
Oh,
name.
Scott?
Not Peter. No, not
Does this
Peter.
individual who is going to come and ban birds have permits to do so? They're definitely required.
From what I
We're not sure.
understand, he, works for an organization, and he does it in a bunch of different municipalities. So he's been working on these types of programs for a while.
Okay, so presumably he would. Very good. So I'm fine, Ryan, with sort of leaving this piece unsettled.
Okay.
I'll circle back with Peter and share with him the input the group provided. We'll sit on the number 7 in terms of the goals for now, and look for an opportunity for that to develop with an actual example. I'll let him know that he can reach out through other means to advertise for folks.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for
I think we've got some good guidance for him. So Frank, I appreciate you collecting up the issues and staying on top of it, right? It's a lot. It's, you have to stay organized to keep this straight, and I appreciate it. So good job. Any other questions or comments on the Raptor program?
I just wanted to mention that. So the whole power thing came from me for the Ormond Roach area, just because there were 3 potential places, as Frank was saying. Are we not going to consider power in that area there will be other reasons to have power in that area eventually, I would assume. But, for nest boxes, Peter seemed pretty excited about the fact that there could be power going in next to that big cottonwood tree or in that vicinity.
And I think we can watch it, but if we have to pay for power to be hooked up and routed down there, I think we're kind of going against what we said we wanted to spend the open space money on. So that's my only thought.
That have to come out of the general fund is what you're saying.
Well, it doesn't have to, but we did make a pretty strong statement that we didn't want open space money spent on those kind of things. We can always change that. And if it's $100, right, that's a different conversation than 10 grand or 100 grand. I have no idea how much all that costs. So I think it's a good idea. And there's, like you said, there's there's some other connection points there that I hadn't thought about previously. So I think it's a good thing to keep trying.
Okay. That's it.
All right, thank you. Okay, open the wrong document. So we are through the agenda. We are to look aheads. Let me get the agenda back opened here. So updates and look ahead. So the big one I wanted to talk about was the Park at Rock Creek application. So we spent a lot of time at our last meeting coming up with our plan for what we thought of the development and how we were going to approach going to the Planning Commission as well as the board on this. I'm glad that we wrote all that stuff down and have it because the Planning Commission meeting hasn't happened. I know that at least I saw that the board will be discussing this, I think on the 27th at their meeting. It's not in their meeting coming up on Monday, but I think I heard from First Fridays that it'll be coming up on the 27th. So we just need to watch out for that agenda and how we would provide input, but also how, if there will be any Planning Commission meeting between now and that meeting. So I will just keep, we just need to keep watching the town communications on when these meetings will be happening so we can develop our plan to make sure all the right people hear our feedback. At least that's my thought on how we should do this, but I obviously could be missing something if anyone has any updates or any other ideas.
We had talked about at the last meeting when it came to the Planning Commission what the best avenue was. And did we, if we resolved it, I have no recollection.
I think we said we would show up and make public comment.
Okay. I just couldn't remember if it was that or if we were going to try and email them our statement.
Well,
but
we talked about it, but I think we said public comment, but now based on how things are going, it may be email.
Okay.
But there's also a chance that there won't be a planning commission before the board sees the proposal. And so if the board sees it, we should be ready to get it. I mean, it went into our minutes from last time, so it should be in a board packet before they see that, so we can also make public comment as the open space committee, however that public comment will be taken, whether it will be email ahead of time or speaking up in the virtual meeting. So I'll be tracking that on how we get that out, but let's absolutely make sure that we don't drop the ball on getting the board the information. I thought we had a really well thought out set of things that we wanted, addressed in the development. So let's not let all that work go to waste.
Okay.
Hey, Ryan, is there any negative to emailing the Planning Commission now with those suggestions or thoughts?
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know how that works, if they read those or, Trustee Hammerly, do you have any thoughts on, it's such a unique time. Maybe we should just email it to them and say, with everything that's going on, we wanted to make sure, you've seen what our thoughts were on the development. I actually think that's a good idea. Does anyone think that we shouldn't do that? Okay. I might need, I don't know. I'll see if I can find a contact. My guess is there is on the website, and I'll just explain, due to what's going on, we were prepared to make public comment, but we weren't able to. So we just thought you'd like to see this information and leave it at that. But that's a good suggestion, Tracy. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And we could always do comment too, but there's so many tech issues that can go on and they could not see it, or we could not get connected, or etc.
Yeah, no, I think that getting ahead of it, I'd rather them hear it twice than not at all. So I think that's good. So thank you. Okay. Well, that if you're not doing anything that night, it might be an interesting meeting to watch, or at least watch the recording afterwards to see what happens. Should be interesting. Okay, then the next thing, as you all saw, Arbor Day is canceled, which is unfortunate but understandable. So, anything we were doing there, obviously we don't need to, but we should try to, or not try to, but remember what we were planning for Arbor Day this year and make sure that we resurrect that next year in terms of the cleanup and the outreach that we were going to do.
And
the
Allison, it's
event.
not going to be rescheduled at this point, right? It's just flat out canceled.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it being rescheduled at this
Okay.
time.
Okay.
I mean, isn't Arbor Day a very specific date on the calendar every year?
Yes.
So
But the days don't matter right now. So
well, that's what day is it?
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
That's a good question.
I think our
Okay.
next big event is National Trails Day. So,
And we'll keep our fingers crossed that it happens. I really hope it doesn't get canceled, but man, I've said that about everything lately and everything's canceled. So fingers crossed. All right, standing update. So Orman Roche. And I finally got the spelling and the hyphen right. So sorry about all those mistakes last time on the agendas.
Tracy, do you want to say something?
I was wondering if Allison wanted to.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Orman Roche, Allison, do you want to?
Oh, right now, there's nothing going on until we figure out what we're going to do with the events. There are going to be some at-home activities sent out for Arbor Day. I think CAPS has some plans, but all events and programs have been canceled right now.
Do you know, will Historic Commission and the stuff they're doing also, I mean, that all, if that all got done, that would all get installed
That's
when
correct.
it was
I think,
ready, right?
yeah, and I think the signs, the templates are done, the stories are done, the pictures are done, and I think they're being made at this point as far
Okay.
as the historical sign piece.
The other thing was, CAPS had reached out to us and they wanted to come and present or talk to us at our next meeting. When I reached out to see if they wanted to come here, I never heard back. So we'll just assume that they'll get on our agenda soon. But I think really, I think they wanted to talk about other ideas that they had for artwork at the trailhead. So, I think maybe we're not getting all of those amenities, but having the historic commission pieces up there, the trailhead, and if CAPS is doing something, it's pretty good. I mean, the other day it was cool when I drove down McCaslin. I think I saw 10 to 15 cars in the parking lot. And I think I only saw 1 or 2 cars parked down on 3rd Ave. So I think the word's definitely getting out. Tracy, I'm waiting for my TripAdvisor review to get published. I wrote it 2 days ago, so it should be showing up any day now.
It's
So
published.
oh, it
And
is?
Yep,
Oh,
and we
okay.
have a few more photos that are on TripAdvisor too. So.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad that got published. I didn't know it took days for that stuff to show up, but I think they want to check it to make sure it's not, kind of people promoting their business in an unfair way, but
Yes.
I thought that was cool.
And I haven't seen anything about a redirect sign from Colton going to Orman Roche when it's full, but I know that Boco's got a lot bigger things on their plate right now. So we can just follow up on that in the future.
There is one now. I was just there today. Yeah. And it's when you're at Colton Trailhead and you do the full loop around, if you drive the full loop around, it's like right on the inside, kind of on the inside circle. And it says, additional parking at Orman Roche. So.
Okay. So somewhere in the parking lot.
Yes. It's kind of like, since it's a one-way, it's kind of, if you were trying to circle around, you would see it kind of closer to on your way out.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And then we'll obviously deal with presenting to ProStack later, like we talked last time, because it's after they address the postmaster plan. Marketing, I don't know if we want to dig into that now, but I think that those things should be put on hold at present, personally. That is all I've got. Sean, what do you have?
There we go. All right. I have nothing.
Well, and I mean, the other thing for marketing is we do have a sign now for our outreach events that talks about the trailhead and where it's located. So we do have some other collateral for.
It's in my basement.
Yep, that's Kate's standard answer, but it's in her basement. But we were going to, use it at Arbor Day and National Trails Day and 4th of July and all of those. So in terms of that marketing, we're ready, we're set. But I think you were talking about, like, should we be hanging flyers at Whole Foods and other things? And I agree. Like, I think now is just a weird time. Really don't want people going out to not, out to just do that. So I think that's a smart call. It's getting fuller and fuller every day. So the word is getting out. So even if we're doing a little bit, it's working. So keep it up.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Joel, anything you want to talk about on Rocky Mountain Greenway?
It's all pretty much come to a standstill. The meetings for the Rocky Flats stewardship are postponed indefinitely. There's nothing new that I've found since our last meeting about any progress on Rocky Mountain Greenway or anything there. I think really it's still in a somewhat standstill, waiting for all the testing to come back. We know they had one elevated, but I think there's many other tests that haven't come back. Really, the only thing I have to add about it, it's kind of anecdotal, is if you drive down Indiana, make sure you look to your right, because there has been a massive elk herd, probably less than a quarter mile off of the road to the west, several times when I've been down there recently.
Huh. Cool. That might be a reason to drive over there and not get out of my car, but just a reason to get
Yeah.
out of the house.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone down there a couple times in the mornings and then late in the evenings, and you can see them. I'd venture several hundred.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a big
Wow.
herd.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. Raptor program. We heard
Yeah.
a lot, but
Yeah, this will be brief. So Peter sent out a monthly update to the group about a week ago or so, actually just a couple days ago. And in it, he mentioned the program's activities are somewhat curtailed. They are tracking some nests, but generally speaking, they're not doing as much as they might otherwise. I did say earlier there might be some nesting still happening in the spring. I misspoke though, I said owls. I'm looking at the note, it's Cooper's hawks and perhaps Swainson's hawks. But otherwise, I don't think I have much to report.
I also forwarded that email, so when we are able to get out a newsletter, that we have that material available. The only thing is, I would love a picture when he gives a report, because that always makes a big impact, I think.
Great feedback. I will share that with them. Thank you.
the only thing anecdotally that I've seen is that on I think it's a Rock Creek Trail as you go into Broomfield. So you go past the park and ride on 36, and then you can hook back up on the trail heading east over by Stearns Lake in, I think that's Broomfield or Lafayette. There's a golden eagle nest over there.
Yeah.
And they've got signs that show, the viewing points for the golden eagle.
Yeah.
And holy cow, is that nest big. It's crazy. Like, you can't miss that it's a golden eagle nest or a bald eagle nest, because it's just massive.
This is the bald eagle nest, sort of where Colton Trail kind of bends back towards Superior.
No, it's on Rock Creek Trail.
Rock Creek Trail.
Yeah, Rock Creek Trail. So
it's
almost
over past the pumpkin farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I rode by this the other day. I went up the the Colton Trail, and then where it intersects with the Rock Creek Trail, you come back to the town, right? Anyway, I think I rode past there last week. It was my first time doing it, and I was very impressed as well. That nest is huge.
Yeah, like where Rock Creek Farms is over there, and they have a raptor rescue over there, a bird of prey rescue that you never, I mean, I think I've seen maybe once a year you could go visit it, but it's over near there. But if you're out and about and want to go see something neat, you know, be socially distant, but it's kind of a cool thing to go see.
Yeah,
over
it's
there.
easy to drive and get there if you go down Dillon Road and there's a dirt road you can take. Maybe it's 104th or something like that. It's the one dirt road, and you can drive to the dead end, and with a decent pair of binoculars, you can get a really good view of it. I rode by there today, and there were lines of people, socially distanced, but checking out the bald eagles, because you could see both the parents there at lunchtime today, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow. That is cool.
That's terrific.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Marcy, anything to report on oil and gas?
I went on the website of Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission today to see what was going on, and they're all working from home. Surprise, surprise. But supposedly they're open. They have draft regulations up on the website, but and they had issued comment periods, but they're all being extended now. And it sounds like they're going to be holding hearings once normalcy returns. But that's kind of what's going on right now. All the comment periods have been extended. The draft regs are up on their website. And there will probably be some kind of hearings when normalcy returns. I don't know if you guys care enough for me to go and read the regs and report back on them. I have not done so, but I mean, if you're interested, I could do that. I don't know how much detail we're interested in other words, you know.
I think we're just interested in, you know, after the scare, we're interested in knowing how things are changing in Colorado, but more specifically in our area, so that we don't have a similar scare, you know, in our town again.
Yeah.
So I think these updates, the level of detail that you're giving is good. One thing I was curious of though was, I recall vaguely.
Mark's off.
Yeah, I was going to say vaguely that I remember the town was going to talk, or maybe talked about it recently at a board meeting, and I don't know if anything came out of their discussion.
The town was going to do something, but I don't know if it ever did anything. I know Mark's been on a couple panels.
Yeah, I just don't recall. I usually watch them all, but lately I haven't. So,
Sandy, do you have any updated info? Did she go? Okay.
Is she here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But yeah, I have nothing to report as an update.
We should have gone out of our order and had him report before he took off, because he's the man on it, I think.
No, that's fine. I mean, normally if the town makes a decision on something like this, there's a pretty big splash through the town communications and whatnot, and haven't seen that. So my guess is they're still figuring out what they want to do around oil and gas. So,
and Safe Superior hasn't really been active either. They've sort of been quiet too. So if there's an issue, the group started around the drilling apps and became very active, and then they kind of died down.
Yep. Okay. Well, unfortunately, a lot of the things are on hold, but we all understand why, and so that's okay. Well, this might be a new record for a meeting time in an hour and a half.
We forgot Conservation Fund.
You
gosh,
one.
I am so sorry.
Fine.
Conservation Fund. Jeez.
I don't have any info, and I didn't probe hard to get info either, given the circumstances going on right now with businesses and whatnot. So,
okay.
Trustee Hamler can give us an update if she's got anything, but it doesn't sound like she does.
Okay. Well, sorry for that, Tracy, but I appreciate it. And Kate keeping me honest, appreciate it. But with that,
There's been
we'll,
nothing in the news. I mean, there was so much on the news about the property and then it all kind of died down.
about the property being for
Sprint,
sale.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah. But again, whatever is going on, we really shouldn't be in the know, right? It needs to be done the way, you know, I mean, I hate saying it needs to be done in secrecy, but it kind of does, right? These negotiations need to be handled the way that the town's decided that they need to be handled. And that's, you know, the assumption is they're still going on. And so we'll cling to that and be happy that it's still going on. So, all righty. Well, I very much appreciate everyone being here. I enjoyed seeing all your faces. Thank you for your input. I'm really glad we didn't postpone this meeting. It was probably one of the better hour and a halves I've spent in a long time. So thank you all for that. Appreciate it. And with that, it is 7:04 and the meeting is adjourned. So
Thanks,
thank you
Kate,
all.
Ryan, and
Have a
everyone.
great evening. All right. Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
I-
Okay, let's see.